is Nancy Rodriguez. I'm an artist and an art therapist, and I'm here today to present to you a workshop on how to make a mandala. A mandala is simply a circle form, and we will be learning how to do one that you will design yourself based upon a theme. There are 4 steps to this process today, and I will get into those further on. There are many benefits to making a mandala. They can be seen as visual tools for aiding prayer and deepening your spiritual experience. They can be ways to just simply relax and reduce stress, alleviate anxiety and depression. I have been enjoying making them on a regular basis since I retired several years ago. And so at some point I began to share them on Facebook and created a Mandala Monday experience, and they have become part of my spiritual practice. I feel closer to God when I'm doing them. I feel happier while doing them and after I've completed one. Sometimes I can reflect upon them and see things about myself that I wasn't aware of before, so they help raise our awareness about ourselves. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and the father of analytic psychology, popularized mandalas in his practice with clients and patients, and also he created many for himself, and those can be found in a book called The Red Book. So he saw them as a symbol of the self, with a capital S, self, our God self. And I see them as a window to the soul. And so we can approach them with that in mind, with an open mind and an open heart, working in an open circle and creating some sort of a design. So ours today will involve the theme of a Bible verse from Psalm 46. Be still and know that I am God. The Lord Almighty is with us always. And I hope that you will enjoy going on this journey, and that maybe it will lead you in a new direction in your life. There are many books on making mandalas and websites, and you can learn plenty about different approaches to doing them. But ours today will involve using the center point of a circle as our starting point, and we will create shapes around it, geometric design, in which you will end up with a finished piece in watercolor pencil. So I thank you for being here and hope that you enjoy it. Okay, we're ready to begin. We're going to start with step 1, which is sketching it out. So we will take some of the steps that you saw in the time-lapse video, and I will break it down a little bit more and at a pace that you can follow along to some point. So let's start. Okay, so the first thing I do is find the center of my paper, and there are a couple of ways to do that, but the way that it works for me most easily is to simply measure the halfway point horizontally and then vertically. So this is 9 by 12 watercolor paper, and halfway across is 4.5. And we go vertically. Halfway across is 6 of the 12-inch vertical dimension, and I just, where they intersect is the center, so that'd be right there. I make a dot. Okay, now the circle form that comes in handy that I use quite frequently in many of my mandalas is an old CD. And I simply place it, and this is a little bit of a guesstimate, and you can measure it if you feel the need to, but because this center circle is rather small, I think it's kind of easy to find the middle of it. And so I do around on the inside and on the outside. Okay. Then I have a compass, and we are going to put an outer band around today's design so that we can write the verse that I shared with you, and that's the theme. And hopefully we will all become quiet and be still while we do this. So if you have a compass, mine is not the greatest. It kind of moves on me, and I try to just get it lightly sketched around, and then I might go back and fill in where it missed. One of these days I'm going to get a better compass. Good enough. Enough that I can make the line more solid. And erase the parts that don't really need to be there. Okay, so then the next thing I do, I would like this to be in quarters, and then eighths, and then sixteenths. So I'm going to go ahead and do the vertical line, the horizontal line across, and I'm going to measure this off more accurately. 6 inches this way. Now, a lot of this seems tedious, and it does take some time and intention, but once you have the framework of your mandala, we can cut loose later. All right, that's the horizontal. Now we'll do the vertical, which is going to be half of this dimension, which is 4.5. And these are guidelines that will get erased. Some of them, some of the aspects of it you might want to keep as you get further along in your design. You'll know. And so it does look like a lot of work that you then erase a lot of it, but I think you'll understand as we go why it's helpful. Okay, so there we go. I have quarters of the circle. And then I take a protractor and line it up with the 90 degrees. And I go halfway between here and there is 45. Halfway between there is 22 and a half, which you sort of have to guess. And halfway between 45 and 90 is 67 and a half. And I do the same thing on this other side. 45 degrees, 22 and a half, 67 and a half. And then flip it around, do the bottom one, the bottom half. 45 degrees, 22 and a half, 67 and a half, 45, 22 and a half, 67 and a half. Boy, that's not easy to see. Okay, good enough. And then I take my ruler and connect. I usually go from quarters, I go to eighths. And I do it from one end of the circle, one outside radius to the other. So now we have eighths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now we're going to do sixteenths. It seems like a lot of sections, but when you start to add patterns and shapes to it in places that you want to repeat one thing on one side and have it symmetrical on the other, it becomes much easier with having these guidelines already in place. Okay, so from this, the words of the verse, if you start on this side, halfway, fit perfectly. Be still and know that I am God. And then the other verse, if you start below the line and going this way, it's easier to read. You don't have to turn the page. The Lord Almighty is with us always. Psalms 46. Okay. You can see how that's all mapped out. And now is when you begin to add your shapes. And I've already completed this in another part of, as an example. So I'll show you what I did. I just, began. I like these petal shapes. I like to find the center, from the center, a kind of a cross shape. And then I would continue on until you reach most of the circle completed on the inside. And these guidelines help you be even. If you want to be exact about where the points end, you can measure from the center and make little marks for yourself as you go. Sometimes I like things to not be perfect and even, because I'm not perfect and even. But basically, things are in a pattern and repeated, and we're just trying to map out the sketch. So I would continue on till the edge, and sometimes I like to go outside and create some sort of a border. I like to use flames a lot. To me, they represent the light of God, the light within us, His light. And I tend to put them, they don't show up in every mandala, but because we're doing Be Still and Know That I Am God, I definitely have a spiritual theme that I'm working with today, and that I'm asking you to do so also. So I might put flames on the inside as well. You get the idea. And when you think that you have enough added to your design, you can stop and take a look, and what you don't like you can change, because at this point it's pencil. When you will be committed to what you've done is when you add the pen, and that is in step 2, which is coming next. So there you go. Sometimes I use the inside part of the CD to add little circles in various places. They become part of the design too. But that's enough to give you the idea. Okay, so next you will see the time lapse for adding pen, and then I'll come back to talk to you about that. that was another quick video watching how I do the pen outlining over top of the pencil and then erasing it, the pencil lines that are underneath the pen, which leaves your template looking pretty clear with the black and white areas. And I did change things from the original as I went, and I think that it's always good to be flexible, and you're not really committed until you add the pen. So it's a good time to make changes when you have your sketch, and then you do step 2, which is to add the ink pen. One thing I mentioned, I think, earlier in a different segment, but when you use a pen, you need permanent ink. It can be any brand and any tip that you like. As I said, I like Sharpies, but there are many types of pens that you will find out there. But for the purpose of using watercolor over top of it, you want it to be permanent ink so that when you add water, it's not going to run and bleed into everything else. So I have learned that the hard way back when. So I just want to say before we move forward into step 3, which is adding watercolor pencil, that this is when it gets fun for me, and probably will for you too, because now the hard part to me is done, and you're going to add color and hopefully enjoy that process. It's very relaxing to me when I do it, and sometimes as I said before, I listen to music, and sometimes I don't, but do what helps you to relax and just be in the moment. And so we're going to talk about step 3, which is adding watercolor pencil. Now, watercolor pencils look like regular colored pencils, and if you don't have watercolor pencils and you don't intend to get any to do this workshop, that's okay. So you would just use regular colored pencils, and then that would be the final step for you of this mandala. But if you do have watercolor pencils, we're going to have 2 steps to go, which is coloring with the pencil, all the different areas on the drawing, and then the final step is using a wet brush and water to turn the pencil into watercolors. It's really fun at that point. So one mention about, there are many brands of watercolor pencils. I have several. If you want to spend a good amount of money, the best brand is Prismacolor, and they look like this, and they do say watercolor pencil on them, and which is how you know they're not regular colored pencils. And some of the other brands I've had through the years are not as good, but I still use them. Fantasia is a brand, and actually Crayola. Crayola is very reliable. In all my years working as an art therapist and working as an arts coordinator and providing art programs for kids and teens, I found Crayola was the most affordable and the most satisfying art supplies out there that are, I don't mean to be doing a commercial for them, but they're very cost efficient, and they do have a good quality to them. So if you're just starting and you don't want to spend a lot of money, I suggest that. So I think that I will do the coloring, and you will see that next in a time-lapse video, and then we'll talk about that when it's finished. I wish this was an interactive process that you could ask me questions, because I'm sure you probably have many, but I hope that you are enjoying this process and perhaps taking yourself in a new direction today. So I'm going to be back with you soon. Okay, I do want to explain about color a little bit before I begin. I like to start with the light areas. I don't always know where to begin, and when I look at the mandala, I just think about, well, what do I know? What colors do I know that I want a certain way? And so for me, that's the lightest areas, which I tend to use yellow, bright yellow, and I tend to start right in the center. You can use any color you want though, and you can approach this whatever works best for you, but this is what helps me. And then I look around to other places in which I would want that same yellow. So the center of the flames I would want to be this yellow. And so forth. I would go all around and do all the rest of them yellow. And then my next step would be to go back to the center and think about what color would I want around this bright yellow, which to me is also a cross. You see, it could be a flower, but in my mind also it looks like a cross. So I would want another light, bright color around it to help it stand out. So I might pick something like a orange or a pink, but I tend to like orange because it's also a warm color. And so then I would color all of those areas following the pattern. There is a pattern to this. If you look closely at your own, you'll see that you want some areas to be repeated in the same color. So you see how that makes that stand out even more. And then there's another layer of this four-pointed star-like shape, which I would probably pick I'm looking for a good red. Not too orangey red, but more crimson red. Yes. Okay. You don't have to color too heavily. There's indentations, texture on this watercolor paper. And so you will see that it's not smooth, and it's okay because when we go to use water on it, it will fill in those areas. The water turns this into paint and it spreads very nicely. So it doesn't have to be heavy pressure, but you do want to get the area that you're coloring, at least the outline of it, pretty good. And then what's on the inner part of it will flow when the water hits it. Okay, so then I also have these areas coming out. They almost look like leaves. And so I'm going to think about a cooler color there. Some sort of green. I would probably want a brightest green first. And I'm going to follow the pattern around it since they're divided in half. So the outer part of it. And then I would pick a darker green to go alongside, give it some contrast. And again, follow the pattern, the placement of this green color the same all the way around. So that gives you an idea of how to begin. And so then I would continue, and I choose my colors as I go. I always refer back to the center and see how things balance out with what's in the middle. I think that would be enough to help you get started.
Hush, little child of God divine. God will be here, will be near, sweet child of mine. Hush, little child of God divine. Fear not the dark where light will shine. Rest, little child, angels are near. They will keep watch, wipe every tear. Rest, little child, angels are near. You are God's hope, shining home. No need to fear. Dream, little child of God divine. Safe in His arms, through the night He'll hold you tight. Dream, little child of God divine. Now close your eyes, go to sleep, sweet child of mine. Rest, little child, angels are near. They will keep watch, wipe every tear.
So then to start with the final step, which is adding the watercolor brush. You can have a variety of sizes of brushes, from the smallest tip for detail to a broader, more fluffy brush tip, which I use these for larger areas like on the outside. And in between that are some other medium sizes, and you really only need about 3 brushes: the smallest tip, a medium-sized tip, and a kind of fluffy broader brush tip. But I like to have them ready for me in case I need them, because I never know what's going to happen as I go. And so to start, once again, it helps me to start in the center. And I keep a paper towel handy for blotting. Sometimes I get too much water on the brush. Sometimes if something starts to bleed into another section that I don't really want it to do that, I can blot it with a paper towel and stop that from happening. You can fix areas that maybe they're too dark and you want to lighten them. All you have to do is add a little bit more water and blot them some more. So I'm going to demonstrate this a little bit before I do the whole thing in a time lapse, so that you have an idea of how to begin this. To me, this is the most satisfying part of the whole process. I enjoy this part so much. I love watching the water, what it does to the colors, and it just soothes me. And so I hope you find the same will happen for you. Oh, you need some water in a container nearby, and I just begin. I start in the center. It always helps me to keep returning to the middle on this type of a mandala. Now on other mandalas that I don't necessarily work from the center point with a geometric kind of a pattern around it, I might have a different starting point. But for this type of mandala that has definitely a center, that I do like to begin in the middle. And you can see the little bit of water is softening that yellow and spreading it. And I always like to blot it a little bit because it makes it brighten up even more. Rinse between colors. I do a lot of rinsing so that you don't turn areas into muddy colors that you don't want them to be muddy. You want them to be colorful and clear. So watch how that orange lightens up. If the paper towel takes away too much of it, you can always spread it around a little more to get it evenly applied. See, that does kind of take away too much, so I just want to spread it around a little more. I call when you do the water and you blot with a paper towel, I kind of call that letting it breathe. Because right now, in places, the watercolor pencil looks kind of thick, and when you start to do this step, it just sort of just allows everything to blend together and softens it. And I will just continue on this pattern of this 4-point star, flower, whatever you see. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And this red definitely needs blotted. See? And I did mix yellow when I was coloring. You can do that as well, overlay colors. I did add yellow on top of this deep red. So it's gonna have an orangey red feeling, which I didn't think I wanted, but after I got started, that's what I wanted. So, and you can see the underlying yellow shining through on the texture of the paper. I don't know if you can tell that close up from your angle, but I like to kind of outline around it and then get the center part of the area. And I always sort of go back and touch it up. Now, if you make mistakes and you run into the next color and you didn't really mean to, I'm sure I will make a mistake and I can show you how to fix that as we go. Okay, so the red is done. this little journey on how to make a mandala. I know that it's been an interesting concept to be doing an online workshop. It has for me, but I hope that you get to start and stop it when you need to, and that you will perhaps look more into mandalas, and there's plenty out there, and you can find all sorts of approaches and ways to go about doing them. So thank you again, and God bless you all.